Hey, everybody, welcome to another great episode of Catholic Laughter. And I'm one of your hosts, Carl Kozlowski.
And I'm the other host, Scott Vinci.
And every week we try to bring you some funny talk about life from a Catholic point of view, and then give you a great interview with somebody from the world of comedy.
Yeah, Carl, I went to the annual Religious Education Congress. It's called the REC, Religious Education Congress. It's in Anaheim. They have it yearly. And basically, it's all things Catholic. It's like the Comic-Con of Catholic. It's like the Catholic convention. They have I would say like symposiums and stuff. They sell like rosaries, books. They even have cardboard cutouts of the Pope. Like the Pope's like just hanging there and you can take a picture with him. And it gets me to wondering though, did he pose for that thing, that cardboard cutout? They're like, this is going to be really good. This is good PR for the church, Pope. Could you pose?
I went to this thing like 6-7 years ago, the same event, and I actually found Pope John Paul II, Pope Benedict, and Pope Francis all together in a row. And I got a great photo that I took standing in the middle of them. And, I thought I would look like I'm super cool and holy. And then I realized, wait a minute, John Paul II's been dead for a decade. So people probably aren't going to believe that all three of them really lined up to say hi to me.
Yeah, or maybe that was him in spirit there and they just snapped it at the right time. Off to the side, they have like musicians play and they have people, keynote speakers and stuff like that. They even had a Catholic magician. But the thing was, I didn't get to see him though. First of all, I just thought he never showed up, but it turns out he just disappeared. That was part of his act. So,
well, if you think about it, I think every priest is basically a magician during Mass. I mean, you got the presto changeo, bread and wine, and now it's the body and blood of Christ. So you can look at it that way, I guess, too.
But right next door, there was like a cheerleading convention going on. And that was got me to thinking. I was like, what if they combine these two events? Like 2, 4, 6, 8. Who do we appreciate? The Bible. The Bible. Go gospel.
Yeah, that sounds great. I think we could use that during Palm Sunday church when it's like super long. Just spice things up a little bit, get everybody to wake up. Of course, Palm Sunday's that Sunday where the priests always get to wander through the church, the whole church as they're coming in, and they take that thing that looks like a microphone and they just start spraying people with holy water, like splat, splat. That's like my favorite day of the year.
I've been to Palm Sunday where they dip the palm in water and then they splash the palm at you.
Really?
Yeah, like They dip it and then the palm fronds are the things that get you wet.
Oh, okay. I just figure, I used to be narcoleptic, and that was like the one. I thought it was the priest trying to guarantee that I'd wake up and pay attention.
Yeah, it's twofold. It's giving you a blessing, but it's also saying, "Hey, everybody, not a time for a nap in church."
I heard it's like the biggest gathering of Catholics in the country every year. So, anyways, good time, and I'm glad you enjoyed it.
You know what? Now it's time for, Carl.
What?
It's time for
Saints Corner.
So, Carl, today's saint is Saint Lawrence, right?
Yeah, he's patron saint of comedians, so extra special to us, And
Okay. Well, even in the midst of his martyrdom, St. Lawrence was able to crack a joke. Here's what we have on file. What put St. Lawrence in the crosshairs of the Roman Empire was the belief that the Catholic Church possessed great amounts of treasure.
The Roman Empire was out to get Christians any way they could. And so they wanted to steal the treasures of the Catholic Church. And so they asked him, hey, what is, where is it? And then he basically wisecracked that, behold in these poor persons the treasures which I promised to show you, to which I will add pearls and precious stones, widows and consecrated virgins, which are the church's crown. So they're looking for gold and, jewels and all this stuff. And he's like, oh, yeah. No, the treasure is actually widows and consecrated virgins. So they weren't really that happy in the Roman Empire with him. And it didn't take long for the Roman official to sentence Lawrence to a cruel death as he refused to worship the Roman gods. So what he said next is the primary reason why he's invoked by many comedians.
They piled burning coals under it, and then they pressed heated iron pitchforks into his body. St. Lawrence said to the Roman official, "Look, wretch, you have me well done on one side. Turn me over and eat." So that was his comedic response to his enraged executioners, who simply after that turned up the heat, and then they just let him burn to death.
I think it's a good thing for all comedians to wind up, if you're stressed before a set. I think you were saying he might be the great guy to pray to get rid of the nerves and get your game on stage. So.
Well, I was just going to say it's been
Saints Corner.
Well, today we're excited to have a real mover and shaker in the entertainment industry, Emmy and Grammy nominated comedy mega manager and TV film producer Barry Katz. So he helped discover and guide the careers of dozens of superstar comics, including Dave Chappelle, Whitney Cummings, Wanda Sykes, the king of Catholic comedy, Jim Gaffigan, Burt Kreischer, and Bill Burr. So he also helped create an executive produced Last Comic Standing and pioneered the use of social media in Hollywood to make Dane Cook the hottest comic on the planet and the hottest selling comedian in 40 years after Steve Martin's peak. He reached the top 5 on the Billboard charts with his albums twice. In film, he helped Chappelle and Neil Brennan sell Half-Baked and produced several other films, including Employee of the Month, Good Luck Chuck, Best Friend Squirrel, and Misery Loves Comedy with Tom Hanks, Judd Apatow, Amy Schumer, and Larry David. Additionally, he hosts the critically acclaimed podcast, Industry Standard, helped bring the roast to Comedy Central, and is the creator of the Blueprint for Success, an incredible website that opens the door of his incredible insights into comedy and showbiz throughout over 100 hours of great content. If you want to succeed in Hollywood, you need to join this site. So, ladies and gentlemen, give it up for Barry Katz. Woo! All right. So thanks for joining us, Barry. It's very exciting to have you on the show, and we look forward to finding out all about you here.
You're going to have to lower your expectations, Carlos.
Yeah.
I have a question for you guys. Where did
Sure.
the golf clap originate?
It's something that I always did on past podcasts with my partners, like going back to 2008. I always give like a frenzied kind of Kermit the Frog intro, like, and then we go, yeah. So we do the golf clap.
Well, and then our producer added in the sound effect, so it sounds like a bunch of people clapping.
Oh yeah, I forgot. Yeah.
So it kind of works when we introduce our guest. So we kept.
Yeah. So, but anyways, okay. So so Barry, we wanted you on the show because you're a real kingpin in the comedy world, and we'd love to show our listeners someone behind the scenes who really is nice, helpful, has a great moral code in how they do business. So what would you say has shaped your philosophy creatively and business-wise?
Failure.
What?
Failure.
Oh, okay. So how do you mean?
Because, people always look at life and they always think that, it's all about the successes. They always talk about their successes. You're in Vegas, you're always up next guy. Hey, listen, I won this much at this. I did this at this, and I won $1,000 here. I was at the craps table. I won 500 here, or somebody tells you about the big deal they made in the entertainment business, or you walk into somebody's house and you see that couch, nice couch, huh? Got that for half price. Everybody talks about the successes, and
Yeah.
but for me, it's all about the tragedy, not the comedy, because without the tragedy, you don't have the comedy, and without the failure, you don't have the success. One of the things that shaped my entire career, I was married. I was in Boston. I had a comedy club I was running. I was running shows all over the place. I got married when I was 25, and my wife was 23. And after 8 months of being married, she died.
Oh, geez, I'm sorry.
So, the world has a way of with you.
Mm-hmm.
And so everything was going great, and then I think everything was lost. And just one day after being in Boston, and every time I'd go out, there's that thing that happens sometimes. I'm sure your audience knows what it is. It's like the negative positive effect. So you go out in the world in Boston to the comedy clubs, and just people keep coming up to you. Hey man, how you feeling? Everything okay? Anything I can do? Every time you go out, it's like they're being so nice and wonderful, but it just keeps poking the bear and hammering away at, the of the situation. Not forget about me, but but her. But and so one day I just got in my car. I was doing really well in Boston. Just got in my car, drove to the New York, took the 79th Street Boat Basin exit, pulled over into the first cafe restaurant I saw. I went to the payphone, which for your audience used to payphones, and they used to have this big yellow pages hanging off of it with a chain. And I looked for real estate agents. I called one, gave the payphone number, and the first apartment he showed me was 82nd Street on Central Park, $935 a month. I gave him first, last, and security. I was in New York. I had no idea what I was doing. I had no furniture, nothing in there, but I was in New York, and my mother always told me that expression, from that song, if you can make it there, you can make it anywhere. And so I thought to myself, well, I'm already at my lowest point, and I remember saying that to her, and she said that phrase that your mother's probably said to you, it's always darkest before the dawn. And so I got there. Unbelievably, I got a call, my answering machine from Eddie Brill, who used to book Letterman, and had been on Letterman a number of times, and had a club in New York, and he was going to LA to try to make it out there. And he said, you should talk to the people. And I went to talk to them, and I convinced them somehow to let me open a club there called the Boston Comedy Club for no money down. They got the booze and the food, and I got the door. And the rest is history. And
were
so
you doing stand up at the Boston Comedy Club at that time too? Because didn't you start doing stand up?
I started doing stand up in Boston, the regular Boston. And a guy named Chance Langton, who was my mentor, he gave me a job doing the door at his comedy club called Play It Again Sam's, which was a very strange place. This is before DVD, before cable. So when movies came off of the theaters, there was nowhere for them. You know what I mean? So he used to buy them or rent them and put them in his movie bar upstairs, and he'd serve all kinds of different alcohol. There was a restaurant in the middle. There was a pub next to that with a singer named Larry Tomei, a folk singer in the corner underneath the TV of the bar, and downstairs was the comedy club. And I had that comedy club for like 8 years. He had fired Chance Langton, who gave me a job as a doorman there. And he offered me the room when I was like a teenager in college. And I took it over. And then after about a little time, he couldn't stand dealing with the comedians. So he just gave me the whole room.
Oh,
He said, you take it over, and I'll take the food and the beverages. And I made it work. I gave Bob Goldthwait Wednesday night show, Dennis Leary Thursday.
Wow.
So Dana Gould on Friday with this guy DJ Hazard. I believe Saturday was Lenny Clark from Rescue Me, and Sunday was Anthony Clark, who'd been on so many sitcoms after that. And Paula Poundstone and Stephen Wright used to work there, and I used to host some shows on the weekend when they didn't. And then in 1986, that's when my wife passed away, and that's when started going into, I went into New York and I just tried to make a go of it there, which I did. So, you know, and those failures and tragedies are the things that should drive everybody to, if everybody's on the watching this is thinking that, you know, it's all got to be success. There's nowhere to go like that. There's no way to grow as a person. There's no way to know how to do better from the mistakes that you make. And, you know, throughout my career, I've had a number of extraordinary, the highest highs I could ever dream of or imagine, and I'm still having them. And some of the lowest lows I could ever imagine as well. And I think that's what life and a career are all about.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, you helped inspire so many people. So, okay, so you launched the website Blueprint for Success recently, and it's remarkable because no other comedy kingpin has ever opened the door in all their wisdom and insights before. So, what inspired you to create this site, and how did you decide that now is the time for it?
This is an excellent question, and except for the word kingpin, you can call me like a little pin.
Okay.
The thing is, again, tragedy or bad things, if they force you, they get you excited about figuring out other things. And when the pandemic happened, you know, it's like, you know, I'm fine. I'm not, you know, I'm not gonna, you know, I've been in at this a long time. I'm not gonna be with a cup in my hand outside, but I had some free time to think about things in certain spots where I would be doing a lot of, you know, film and television and stuff like that, and personal appearance stuff. And at night, I always had free time. You know, I always. So I thought to myself, what can I do to help, you know, young comedy artists or old comedy artists or anybody at any level? Because I always loved that. I always loved being of service. You know, even in the early time, you know, even when I was younger than everybody else, I would always want to do something that was probably something that probably people ask me why you're doing it. I remember one time in the early years in Boston, there was this comedian. He was, you know, he's like not your traditional comedian, but he always killed, you know, but he didn't do the traditional plant your feet and sling the jokes kind of comedy. He was more physical. Sometimes he used props. His name was Ed Regine. And I used to book him in a lot of venues, but I knew there was a lot of stuff going on with him that was difficult for him. And I remember this vividly. He went to jail for he was like a car dealer or something like that, and he went to jail for some kind of thing with cars. And I remember I visited him in jail, and when he came out, I just gave him a lot of gigs because I remembered when I was down, he used to come and visit me every Monday when I was just in bed all the time, just wondering what my life was going to be, and he'd force me to come out. And those are the people that I always remember wanting to go the extra mile. Louis C.K., same thing, you know, my first client ever.
Wow.
When I remember the first Christmas after my wife passed away, I'd have one of those answering machines. A lot of your older fans might know the answering machines where people could call and you could actually hear the person talking and you could decide whether you wanted to pick up or not. And Louis would call me all day Christmas, you know, like 10 times. And I finally picked up, and he said, listen, get your ass out of there and come to my house right now. We have a place at the table for you. And I got out there, and it was amazing, one of the most amazing days of my life. And so I always want to do something nice for people who were nice to me, or even people who weren't nice to me. And the problem with comedy, there's a lot of problems with comedy, and there's a lot of great things about comedy. The great thing is about comedy, it's never been a bigger boom than it is now. The bad things about comedy are that nobody, you're maybe it's the same for life. Maybe it's not bad, but you kind of have to fend for yourself. You kind of have to figure it out yourself. And there's not a lot of mentors out there. And during the pandemic, I thought to myself, well, I've gotten like 4 people on Saturday Night Live, and that's the greatest feeling in the world when their talent and your talent come together, and you're behind the scenes, they're in front of the scenes, they get it. It's fantastic. But then you realize, okay, I made a difference in one person's life. Maybe I made a difference in Lauren's life, or Marcy Klein, or NBC. But then you start thinking, wait a second, this fateful thing, maybe millions of people laughed at their sketches. Maybe people felt better. And I thought to myself, but when I focus on one person in management, I love that, but it's like I feel like I'm only driving one person forward to make like it's when you throw a rock in the water, it just ripples. When you throw a comedian out there and they do well, it all ripples and it reaches the whole world. But you're the guy just throwing the rock, and the rock is the person, I'm sorry, and the rock is the entity making the impact. So I like to look at myself as the person who tries to throw the rock, and the artist is the rock that just makes a noise, as Dane Cook would say, that's so loud the world has to listen. And so with the Blueprint, I thought, okay, let me rent a studio during the pandemic. People thought I was nuts. I was nuts. I rented a studio during the pandemic. I rented an office space, and I made it into a studio. And I spent like 2 years filming all this kind of content that I thought that I could put up on this platform to help young people. And for about a year, I kind of put it out there, like, without really, I guess, what do you call it? Testing or whatever. I had it out there and barely anybody really. There was only a group of maybe 20 or 30 people that I had on there, and it was fun, and it was like, and then I met these people who had worked with Tony Robbins, and they listened to what I did, and they convinced me to put it on this other platform that Anthony Robbins does. And they said, you don't have to go crazy, just put it up, do what you want to do, but things will grow. And it's been, I think, 11 months. March 13th was when we launched and there's close to 700 people in the community, and we have meetings every Monday night, and we have like a writer's room the first Monday, and Ask Me Anything the second. The third is like a comedy breakdown, where we break down the first set of a comedian doing their first national television set. And then the last Monday is a roundtable with a celebrity guest, like and it might be a casting director, it might be an acting teacher like Leslie Kahn, it might be a movie producer like Michael Mendelsohn, who worked on Reservoir Dogs and Fight Club. It might be Kenny Hotz from Kenny versus Spenny, who was on television for 9 years with that show. It might be, next week is Tim Duffy, who's an Emmy award-winning producer, who with his twin brother, had the Ugly Brothers company. So And so I get to make a difference to all these people. And there's different tiers. You can go in for free and just hang out and go to the meetings, listen, or you can pay anywhere from $9 to, your entire Swiss bank account to whatever you want to do.
I was
Uh,
just I was on the website before this interview, just checking it out, and it looks like you have over like 100 hours of content to watch, dozens of talks and stuff. There's interviews with star comics and stuff like that. But what I'm asking is, what do you hope people take away the most, learn the most from being a member on this site?
well, first of all, what's fascinating is like I just want to say this, like people talk about this site a lot and they call it certain things. They say, like I can't wait to take your courses. I'm like, I don't look at myself as a classroom teacher. Well, like looking forward to your coaching. Well, I don't really want to think of myself as a coach. Well, I can't wait to be a member. Well, I don't really, I mean, if you want to call yourself a member, but it's like, I just want a place for, artists to be able to hang and learn from an Airbnb, the 40 years of stuff I have in my mind about this crazy business.
Hmm.
And there's so many things that I know about what happens. And look, there's so many things I probably don't know still, and I'm still learning. But there's one thing I do know, and I hope this answers your question. I don't understand how it all works with me. I know my place. I know my place in comedy. But I don't know, you can't quantify in a court of law how things happen. If you meet one person, one artist, and who's living in like a studio apartment and they become a multimillionaire, if you meet them and that happens and you work together, that could be a coincidence. And twice it happens, a fluke. 3 times it happens, maybe you're lucky. But it's happened, I think, over 26 times, 25 or 26 times for me. So something's going on. I don't know what it is. I couldn't go into a courtroom and say, Your Honor, this is happening. But something's happening with what I feel about artists, the direction I think they should go, how I think they should be, and being like a chameleon with them and how they are and figuring out the best way instinctually. Like in my life, in my career, I only get paid for one thing. And that's my opinion. That's it. And so, and people can take it, they don't take it, that's fine. I've met artists, look, 22 years ago, he'll probably tell you a different story. 22 years ago, Kevin Hart wanted me to represent him. I didn't. I didn't fight to represent him. His argument might be that he passed on me. But the fact is that I've resigned from working with Bill Burr after 8 years. I mean, I'm not the greatest clairvoyant in the world, and I'm not, he's one of the greatest, most gifted and talented people of our generation or any generation. It's like, so I made my Mike Epps. I resigned from working from Mike Epps. He's amazing, just an amazing artist. I love Mike Epps. So I haven't always made the right choices, or I haven't, but life, sports is a lot like life. It's like there's no one who's 1,000% or 100% or whatever you want to call it. There's no one. There's no one. Ted Williams is in the Hall of Fame, failed 6 out of 10 times. LeBron James has the most points scored of any player in the history of basketball. And I believe he missed 50% of those. You know, if he made all those shots, he would have had 80,000 points, you know, but he didn't. And he's still one of the greatest players of all time. So what's that famous quote that's grammatically incorrect by Wayne Gretzky? Something like, not coincidentally, I never scored on all the shots I didn't take, or something like that. So I'm not perfect, but I feel like there's something there, and I wanted to have a place where people could come, and even if they had no money at all, they could listen to what's happening on a Monday night and just absorb what's going on, and see how I'm thinking and how other artists are thinking and how they're growing and how they're moving to the next direction. And if they have a little bit extra money a month, they can have, you know, the 50 greatest podcasts I have, from Bill Burr to Kevin Hart to Judd Apatow, that I took off the free platforms and just put there for them if they wanted it. Or if they want to spend a little more, I did a master class where I did 24 different episodes of how to go about, whether it's doing a 5-minute late night set, to how to film an hour special, to, you know, how to go into an audition, to anything you can imagine, podcasting, whatever. And then there's more content as well of the greatest artists of our generation, what they think about things, what they're doing, more interviews that have never been seen on the regular free channels. So, and then they can get these Monday meetings with me where they can ask questions if they're at a certain level, or they can even have one-on-ones with me at another level. It's just whatever they want. I don't care. I just want to help. And I'm not going to buy 11 islands like David Copperfield from this program. Just kind of just services itself and my time, and that's it. That I've always wanted to make a difference. I always want to try to help people. And I love it. I love comedy. I love seeing what's happening, whether I represent the people, I don't represent the people. I love it. You know, I love different kinds of comedy. People I don't represent. Jimmy Carr. I love Jimmy Carr. I love the fact that a guy goes on with a clipboard and notes whether it's a magic trick, whether it's not a magic trick, whatever it is. Kill. I love the fact that Mark Norman can get away with like a little throwaway silly joke in the middle of greatness, where he'll just say, you know, any gay people in the crowd tonight, yeah, thanks for coming out. You know, I love the fact that he has the balls to just throw in the tiny little, you know, thing, and not worry about getting criticized, and then he just has all this brilliance. I love young people like Sam Morrill, who can get away with doing a routine on the Holocaust and talk about the 100,000 people who weren't Jews going up to the security guard saying, "Excuse me, I think there might have been a mistake here." You know, but I also love people that I work with as well, like Brad Williams, who, you know, is one of the most unbelievably powerful comedians I've ever met in my entire career. I've never seen anyone get the kind of responses that this guy gets, and he's 4'4", and he's an inspiration not only for, you know, people who are disabled, but also comedians who aren't disabled. He's just
right,
amazing. And that's how I started my career. I started my career before this working in camps for disabled kids and adults. So and so it's weird that would be the case, but to see Brad's rise, you know, those are the things that are the dream. Like when you see somebody break through and you're like, I just want to say one other thing. A guy who really inspires me, who I love, is Tony Hinchcliffe. You know, Tony has always been so kind and so wonderful every time I see him and meet with him. And I remember, I don't know how many years ago, might have been 7 years ago, could have been less. He said, I want you to come see my Kill Tony show. And it was in the Belly Room, I believe. I went to see it, and there might have been 40 people there, whatever, but fucking funny. He's just amazing, just what he's doing. He's taking, I always like to say, study greatness, imitate greatness, become great. So you can work the greatest things you ever see. They have formulas, and Kill Tony has these formulas from different things he's experienced in the world. Next time he tells me to come see him, I come see him. I'm go up to the Belly Room. There's nobody there. I go to the original room, nobody there. I'm like, what? Do I got the wrong night? I walk by the main room. I can't even get in. I'm squeezing my way in. There's like over 400 people there to see Kill Tony. This year he's working NBA arenas. It's like there's nothing greater than seeing artists figure it out and rise to the next level and inspire the next generation. It's the greatest. And that's what I want to do with the blueprint. I want to help young people not make all the mistakes that most people make, and try to skip over those mistakes. And they're still going to make mistakes, but whatever. And so I know I'm rambling, but I want to say one more thing about the kind of things for young artists. The other day, an artist called me who I work with, who shall remain nameless. She said she was having a great time all week long, killing at all these shows. And a big headliner asked her to open up for her. And so she stayed an extra day and did that. And she said the show wasn't that good. And I said, why wasn't the show good? She said, oh, well, there wasn't an MC, and the lights were still on, and I had to go out cold, and people were walking in. And I said, permission to speak freely? And she said, yeah, it's all your fault. It's all your fault. She said, why? I don't understand. What did I do? What you do is you go to the technical guy backstage and you say, listen, could you help me hand me the mic off stage, and could you put the lights down, please? Then you use a different voice than yours. Hey, everybody, glad you're here tonight. Let's have a round of applause for you coming out tonight to see a great show and your headliner, blah, blah, blah. Then tell a little joke there, something. Hey, the words you're going to see, if you're offended by the words, one of the things you go to a Brad Williams show, if you're offended by the words, and he says every bad word, then you should leave right now, probably, or whatever. It gets a big one.
Yeah.
And then, okay, are you ready to see a great show tonight? I can't hear you. Are you ready to see a great show tonight? Yeah. All right. This first act is one of the most talented comedians in the country. Please give a round of applause for boom. And then you introduce yourself. And then you go out. And now they're all set. They're ready for you. Instead of just walking out to a crowd with the lights are on, people are walking in because somebody just tells you to go out there. And these are the kind of things that I know from years of doing it. Again, if you went to England and tried that, they would probably punch you in the face because, in England, they don't want you to get the crowd ready. They don't want you to have credits. They just go on and show you're funny. But if you can do something to create an advantage for yourself here, it's something that you should do.
It makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. Well, so one thing that you were that you really blew up with was when you took Dane or the both of y'all wound up having him shoot up to being the biggest comic on the planet. A large part of that at the time was the new stuff with social media. And I was just wondering, how did you know that social media was a way to break down barriers at that time, since it was so new? And do you feel that there could ever be other comics that could reach that level of success, or is social media good, but we'll probably never see another, world-beating superstar on that level?
Well, I love Dane Cook, and he was always great to me. Always treated me with respect and dignity, and always never lost his cool with me. And to this day, still invites me to shows. I just was out in Arizona. He invited me to a show in Arizona. I came out with my sister there, and I was backstage. But I think he would respectfully disagree. You know, it's like records are made to be broken, and that's what it's all about. And you have to, you know, pass the torch, and also try to figure out ways to also reinvent what you're doing and be groundbreaking. We started social media for artists, and I say we loosely, because I just want to let you know that Dane Cook, although, you know, people don't really understand, was just an incredible business mind when it came to things like that. You know, as a manager, you're always supposed to be one step ahead of the artist. And in this case, he knew that I wasn't one step ahead of him, but he didn't hold it against me. He just asked me to help him do certain things that maybe he wasn't as good at, like negotiate a deal with the guy who did the US Army website. That was the only great website out there in the world back then, to do Dane's website, which was one of the hardest negotiations I've ever had. The guy was like immovable. Cost $25,000 to do Dane's first website. And my apologies for my dog. He's probably getting eaten by a coyote. And let me see. Do you want me to get the dog out, or do you want me to keep going?
I don't hear it.
Oh,
I
good.
don't hear it at all either. Yeah.
So you know, by the time we went to HBO to talk to Chris Albrecht, he and I knew that he could press a button and fill an NBA arena, probably who knows how many times. And we put a sizzle reel together for a show called Tour, and also evidence to prove that we could sell a big event, a big arena like that, and do a special there. And our goal was to do it in the round, and call it Vicious Circle. And Chris was gracious enough to buy the series, and also the special. And Dane, I don't think had ever sold a bigger venue hard ticket than maybe 500 seats. He'd worked bigger venues where colleges where, you know, was free or whatever with a student ID, but never really worked a big venue like this the first time. We sold out the first show. He pressed a button. He had his own code, and it was unbelievable. He sold out in 2.5 days. Then we rolled it over for the next show. He sold that out in less than 7 days, and we never went on sale to the general public. It was only his fans. And then we went on to do Madison Square Garden and sold out both shows. And in one night, no comedian to this day still has yet, I don't believe, has ever sold 2 shows in one night at a venue like that. But there's other comics now who are doing great things. You know, we had an offer to do Fenway Park during the summer of Employee of the Month, or it was the summer of Good Luck Chuck. And we had this, Fenway Park has like 1 date a year, maybe 2, that they can do personal appearance stuff, that they'll actually do it back then. And he was going to be the first comic to ever do Fenway Park, and we knew we could sell it out in a second, but we couldn't change the dates of the movie, and the movie was pissed off us already because we had to move some things, so we couldn't do the Fenway Park thing. And Bill Burr ended up being the first comedian to do Fenway Park. But good for Bill Burr, you know, because, you know, he deserves it. And Gabriel Iglesias did, you know, Dodger Stadium.
Wow.
So there's comedians who are doing amazing things today. I mean, Kill Tony, doing the Forum in LA. I mean, come on. It's it's crazy. It's crazy what's happening. And I say come on. I'm not saying come on to be disingenuous to Tony. I have so much respect for him. I'm just saying, like, do you think when he was in the Comedy Store, he would think to himself, okay, I'm going to be in the same town doing the Forum?
Yeah.
It's like Bert Kreischer is doing minor league baseball stadiums. Bert Kreischer has 3 different kinds of tours himself, him with Tom Segura and the festival.
Yeah.
This is a guy who I represented him for 8 years. He did do a television pilot when I was working with him and had some development deals we had a development deal with Will Smith for a show, but he really truly never booked a film or television role. And so he just decided, hey, I'm going to do my own podcast. And he bet on himself and it worked. And what's amazing about Bert is he's a guy who crosses over, he's a guy who crosses over into Joe Rogan's world, who Joe Rogan, another guy, a massive respect for. I mean, he's like the Lorne Michaels of podcasting. And because of all the people that he breaks through his show, all these great artists. But then Bert also can be in the other side too, and go both ways, which is wonderful. And I think I just, I love watching this. This is like, is there anything greater than this?
Yeah.
I just in Dallas, Brad Williams did, 4,000 seats at a theater in Dallas. He was in a comedy club the year before. It's like the things that are happening. It's
Yeah.
so wonderful to see. And I want young people to know who are starting comedy, or even who've been doing it for 10 years or longer, that sometimes it's just about an adjustment, a little thing here or there, or what it is. And I know I'm talking a lot, but I think it's important for the comics that are listening to your show. One of the most important things that people don't really understand is that your words are very powerful, not just as a human being, but on stage. Everywhere you are, there's somebody watching, somebody talking. So if you're going to do a joke in your set that's like this joke about, hey, listen, what part of the chicken does the McNugget come from? Listen, Gilligan's Island, I don't understand that show. They could make a blender out of 2 bamboo poles, but they couldn't fix a hole in a boat this big. It's like, you're not, if you can do one thing that's not carving you out as original in terms of your premises, your phraseology, then you're sinking yourself. It's like you're doing a set with ankle weights. It's just because comics talk. They talk all the time. And it's true, you can, once you get to a certain level, you can do things that maybe if a younger comic did, they wouldn't be looked upon as highly. Just like the Mark Norman joke I said at the beginning. But the point is, for younger comics, you have to have original premises and you have to have phraseology, diction, and phrases that you don't really hear that often. Like, for anybody listening, you should watch Norm Macdonald's, the late Norm Macdonald, one of the greatest, do his first Letterman set. This is his first television appearance. And you should get a pad of paper and just have 2 columns, premises and phraseology or phrases, and just put like a a check mark each time you hear him do a premise that you had never heard before. And each time you heard him say a phrase or a word that's like you rarely have ever heard in stand-up. And you'll find when you watch that set, there's over 30 different things. And the greatest comedians in the world can do that. And then they can put the puzzle in front of you, a 1,000-piece puzzle that you can't figure out until the joke comes. And those are the greatest comedians in the world, where the audience can never figure you out. And last thing, there are some comics who do the Penn and Teller approach to a joke, but those are the greatest comics in the world, you know, like Bill Burr, when I'm not going to swear so much anymore, but when he puts the swear before Asians and after Asians, he tells you what the joke is going to be. He then says the joke and you laugh and applaud, you know, but that's the masters, you know, and so that's my thought on it.
Wow.
Right.
Well, hey, Barry, I want to say thanks for taking the time. And I want to recommend, of course, for everybody to go check out your website, blueprintforsuccess.com. And, since you caught all this about the site on our show, when there's a promo code, please log in as KOZ when you sign up, and you'll really enjoy this. So once again, thank you for your time,
Yeah, Barry,
good luck with
thanks
everything.
a lot. We could talk for hours and listen to you for hours. You have tons of stories, but we really appreciate you being here and telling us that much so far anyway. So
I appreciate you guys. And in the 30 seconds I have left, I just want to let your audience know that, like, I know it sounds corny, but I've seen everything happen and anything can happen. So the only thing that gets people down is themselves. The greatest ideas and the most amazing things that have ever happened or ever visioned or ever been created, or the most incredible ideas or concepts or stand-up routines or one-person shows, are all in the same place. The most of them are in the cemetery. That's because people don't have to get out there and fail. Going full circle with what we talked about earlier. Get out there, go out there, do your thing, and fight for your dreams and what you believe in. Because, I don't really like using the word dreams, because dreams sometimes don't come true. But, make it your vision, make it your passion. You can make it happen. I've seen it. I'm not lying to you. I've seen it over and over again. And anyone can do it, and you can too.
All right. Well, thanks a lot. And again, blueprintforsuccess.com. All right. Till next time, folks. Thanks for listening and
thanks,
watching.
Barry. All right.
Thank you.
CatholicLaughter.com brings live stand-up comedy shows to your church, fundraiser, or event. For more information or to inquire, go to CatholicLaughter.com and be sure to follow us on Facebook and Instagram.